super amazing advice that you just know would fix another DJ's problem, but then they don't take it, like what do you do? What's up, my Good Vibe DJ tribe? Today's Ask Kilma inquiry is, I want to help my community and I try my best to give good advice based on my experience, but people seem to want to keep making the same mistakes. How do I get through to them? How do I help my scene thrive if people aren't willing to listen? Let me start off by saying I think it's so flippin' wonderful that you want to help your community, that you want to see it thrive. I think that's admirable and I think you should keep doing it. But there's one thing that you said there that really stuck out to me. You said, how do I help my scene thrive if people aren't willing to listen? Sometimes we give really great advice, and because of somebody's headspace, their mindset, they're just not ready to take it, and that's okay. I think it's more important that someone feels safe enough to be vulnerable with you, safe enough to say, like, this is the issue I'm going on about, and I don't know what to do, and it's really frustrating. If somebody can come to you and talk to you about that stuff, that's building trust. And I feel like that's so much more important than giving them really great advice, because one of the best ways that we can help our scene thrive is literally to live by that example. Somebody might say, oh, I'm late on all of these projects and my radio mix is overdue and these clients are waiting to hear back from me on the emails and I'm just going bonkers. And you could say, well, it sounds like you need to be more organized, which would probably tick that person off if they're just kind of venting about what's going on in their life. People want to get along. And if it's more important to you to be right, well, you're going to have issues having people listen to that advice, especially if that's not the headspace that they're in at that time. Sometimes they just need to hear somebody say, dude, that sucks. Is there something I can do to help? Or maybe coming back to them a week or two later and saying, yo, I had some thoughts about these issues that you were going through last week. Would you be open for some feedback? That might be a good time. Or it might not be, but at least you're asking that person ahead of time if they're, mentally in that headspace to listen to some feedback. But I go right back to the idea of being that example, because we know a lot of people that give great advice that don't take that advice. And well, we're all guilty of that. Let's be honest. So if you can, maybe, for example, you're really organized and you get things done and you got a lot of stuff going on and people say, I don't know how you do it. And you're like, hey, I could show you. Or you can do other really cool things like do vlogs. And then if somebody is looking for that advice, they find it. One of the biggest mistakes I made, well, maybe it's more like time wasters. I tried to give people unsolicited advice. They were venting to me about an issue that they were having. So I'm like, hey, you could do this, you could do that. They weren't looking for that. They did not care. Or somebody came to me for advice and they didn't take it. That's something that we have to realize is probably going to happen. So what do you do in situations like that? Well, if you have all this knowledge, why don't you package it? Why don't you write articles about dealing with unprofessional promoters or helping people negotiate a wage? This way, when you're writing up these paragraphs over and over and over again, suddenly they become a link to an article where you're like, hey, if you're interested, I've got some information here. And then they can go click it and they can go read it. Because then you're not wasting time. You're leading by example. And they can come to you for that advice when they're ready. If somebody sees that you are successful and you are doing well, chances are they are going to want to know how you are doing those things and then come to you for that advice. Maybe you need to start doing workshops. I mean, if you got real great advice out there, well, do something really productive with it and you're going to see your community continue to thrive. For the rest of y'all, if you have any Ask Kilma questions, make sure you hashtag, well, I guess you could hashtag Don't Kilma Vibe. That would work too. And let's answer them. Let's answer those questions.